and all the books are giving it in its most disgusting state. They're not actually giving it in its optimum nutritional state and taste state. Because as far as I'm concerned, if I'm going to be surviving or thriving, I don't want stuff that tastes crap. I want it to be, nourishing, because at the end of a hard day, when you're knackered, you don't want horrible food. You want something that's actually going to pleasure your body and give you a bit of aliveness and comfort, rather than just fuel. So I'll cover a lot of flowers, and I cover a lot of the different aspects of the plants. Roots are not really a strong point for me, but obviously I know the roots that are there. But if you want to get into the kind of nutritional content of the plants, out of all the research that's done, we're looking at maybe 15 plants that have been really thoroughly nutritionally analysed. So there's a big difference. It's still very, very early days to nutritionally analyse a plant. You're looking at about 200 quid, so 300 plants is a lot of money. I'm working with some people who hopefully in the military are going to put some funding in to do that kind of research, but at the moment it's not there. And I've taught people from the RAF who do escape, evade, resist and survive courses. They're instructors for that. So I don't come from a very strictly survival base, but I do have a broad range and quite a depth of knowledge when it comes to the plants. I'm not a botanist, and one of the things I try and encourage people when they get into plants is that they get out of their botanist mindset, and you start identifying plants from like a 4-year-old would. So we're looking at very much more tactile and sensory understanding of plants rather than just a logical neocortex kind of way. Knowing plants, and actually knowing plants very much on which plants really nourish your body, and you can get that through, there's various processes you can find out about. One of them is what I call a rehydration response, which is when you get a plant, like the other day I went down to the estuary and just harvested loads of sea plantain, which to me, as soon as I put it in my mouth, my body just has this sighing effect. When you're really thirsty and dehydrated and you have that first glass of water, the body just sighs, it soaks up like a sponge, and that's the response I look for in plants when I'm looking for my own nutritional intake, because I trust my body far more than I do my brain. My brain is used to process the senses and information that comes in through my body. And that's not esoteric, that's just the way that hunter-gatherers work. And I can talk more about various organs in the body that we need to reactivate in order to not kill ourselves when we forage. Anyway, that's it.
Any questions, guys, before we get off?
Oh, that's great.
So if I miss plants, if I don't see plants, if you want to see plants and you say, Rob, what's this? Or, here's a plant you've missed, tell us a bit more about it. Just say that, because my perception is not 100%. I don't see everything all the time, so I might walk past a plant that you see. So just pull me up on it.
If there is any special carbohydrate routes, which I'd be interested in that.
Yeah.
So obviously something in this type of situation you need,
Sure. Yeah. I'll take you through the routes that I know, and obviously the guys here know loads as well. So.
Great.
Excellent.
Before they flower, because then the nutritional content's deep down in there. If you harvest roots when they're flowering, you might as well not bother, because they're kind of over. Silver leaf has been used, up in the Outer Hebrides, they literally farmed it for the roots. The leaf, again, you can just use it as a tobacco substitute. I haven't tried eating the leaf yet. No idea, really. Just woody and fibrous.
So the best time to harvest is when?
Autumn and spring.
I find it a cow to dig up mine, because it's always in rugged soil.
Yeah.
But I also heard, if I'm right, it's before the...
That's right.
Sorry, what was it again?
It's hemlock, and you can tell it because of obviously the stems with the blood spots.
Conium maculatum.
Okay, that's the Latin for it.
I'm glad you said it, because I always was a conine, but maybe some people read
the
that
pronunciation of Latin,
differently.
mate. I mean, I'm from Somerset, so
Don't
I
ask me
wouldn't
to
say
spell
that.
it.
It's a dead language, isn't it? So,
Yeah.
and it's
Conine
Greek and Latin together.
But the maculatum is what it is. I've heard there's a few plants with that name on the maculatum. Why is there? What is maculatum?
You'll have to go to the etymology on Google or something like that.
Do you know what that means?
Maculatum?
Yeah.
No idea.
Because there's a few poisonous plants with that derivative. Just wondered if there was... Because sometimes when you look into the Latin, it gives you a little bit more of an angle. Like Daldinia, concentrica, why is it called that? I cut it in half, you see the concentric lines.
Right.
It gives you a little bit more on it, you know?
Yeah. One of the things I've observed with the umbellifers, and it's only an observation, it's not a rule, so you know, it's 80% pretty much, is that the actual edible umbellifers tend to be hairy, and the poisonous and toxic ones tend to be smooth. And if you look at hemlock, it's very smooth stem. If you look at any of the edible umbellifers that we're going to hopefully find, then they're often very hairy. So again, avoid this like the plague if you're not certain, because this leaf coming out is very similar to cow parsley when it comes out as well. And that brings me to actually when you're foraging, what you actually see is that people will go in, say, let's take ramsons, we'll go in, they'll harvest a load of ramsons, they'll cut them through a big bunch, they'll stick them in their bag, they'll go home and they'll cook them up, and yet within that is lords and ladies, there's lily of the valley, there's ivy, and they're not delicate in their foraging. Whereas if you go out onto the land over here, the small holdings, when you're harvesting, you're just pulling stuff out. So foraging initially when you're going and you want to get big masses of matter, is you've got to be very careful that obviously there isn't toxic plants when you're actually harvesting. This just screams, come and consume me.
On the smaller stem then, is that fruitful as well? No,
Right.
when it's just...
When it's just coming out, you always get the red that I find. When it's really, really tiny, I can't answer that. Got any observations on that?
No, I mean, you can only assume that it's going to be a characteristic that's coming through very, very early.
That's the trouble, see.
Observations on that?
No, I mean, you can only assume that it's going to be a characteristic that's coming through very, very early.
Okay, with hogweed. Sorry, what's your name? Kevin. Kevin just asked what's the best kind of way to cook hogweed. Basically, it has toxic chemicals in it, the same as giant hogweed. Giant hogweed actually looks quite similar to this plant with the red spotted stemming, but obviously it's like a trunk sometimes when it grows, and it grows really huge and it'll give you third-degree burns. When you're harvesting hogweed, you must harvest it, if you're harvesting a lot of it, because for me this is a plant that I have a good relationship with. Basically, if you're harvesting lots, harvest it with gloves, because in sunlight it will activate and you can blister yourself, so you really need to harvest it in shade. I tend to be okay. I have a relationship that you and your body have with this plant. To cook it up, what I like to do is basically just pick that. The little shoots that come up. This is a bit too big. I would still use that. I mean, if you're talking survival situation, then you're going to be eating this, but what you need to be doing is slicing it very fine and just frying it. You know, oil, butter, if you can get that, obviously, but definitely steam it, cook it at least.
Steam it.
These I would steam and then fry. Yeah, and they're just fantastic food. Fantastic tucker. But you must cook it.
You wouldn't. You wouldn't eat it raw. Is it likely to be toxic?
It's because it's got the chemical in it that makes you blister.
Yeah.
So you really don't want to be putting. Well, it's cow parsnip, isn't it? That's this other name.
Oh, right.
So the root I haven't tried. So obviously the rules are you aren't allowed to dig up a root unless you've got permission from the landowner. Otherwise you're breaking the law. The rules are, just to cover that again, the rules are you can go onto someone's private property and harvest their food under the Theft Act. There's an exemption there, but you can be nailed for trespass. So,
You say this is also
brilliant.
known as cow parsnip.
But trespass is a civil wrong. It's not actually a crime.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
as
Yeah,
long
well
as you
done, Tom.
as long as you leave when the owner asks you to, you can just walk away.
Hogweed is not documented in the historical food record or Epicurean record of Britain at all. But in Poland and Eastern Europe, hogweed is used extensively.
As a root.
The root's used, the whole plant is used. And the
So it
way,
must be okay then. You
yeah,
know?
no, I haven't done the root yet.
Right.
I don't know about what it tastes like, its texture.
It's big. I know that much from digging it out of my garden a
Yeah.
few times. Like,
Well, it is what used to be called cow parsnip.
Is
so,
it the size of a carrot or something?
it's bigger.
Yeah.
Well, like
so
a
I
turnip
would
it's
size.
suspect
a
there's
bit
big
of that,
nutrition in it.
Yeah.
I would suspect there's big nutrition in
Yeah.
it, but I haven't had time to get there.
I reckon the pigs must have liked it then. It's called hogweed.
Well, what's crazy is the reason I don't think it's in the historical record of Britain is because if you look at who actually wrote those books, it was the ruling class, it was the merchant class, and it was the monastic order.
Yeah.
And in any social grouping, in any
Not so much a
demographic,
common man. Like.
there are certain foods that I'm very interested in that, but I'm also in finding the foods that the common people used to eat, because that was what fed the majority of people who didn't have any money. Yeah. So hogweed not written in the British record. Go to Poland, East Europe, it's huge over there. You have borscht in Poland, which is the beetroot soup, which was originally fermented. And the way they would ferment it is they would take these leaves, and at this level you can go at this length, this length leaf. You put it in water 3 days and it starts bubbling, and it's lactic acid fermentation, because there's yeasts and bacteria and kinds of pollens and all kinds of stuff that come onto these plants that actually activate. Now, what happens with lactic acid fermentation is you're making the nutrition more bioassimilable, bioavailable to your body. So actually, you're not increasing the nutrition of the plant, you are increasing how much nutrition you can take in. So you're breaking down through lactic acid fermentation. Now, one of the things that I'm researching is lactic acid fermentation, because obviously, you know, great in dominant culture when you've got refrigerators and stuff, but what are you going to do when you don't have refrigerators, and how are you going to preserve your foods? And this is where lactic acid fermentation has been used through pretty much all indigenous cultures.
So what you're saying is that you could keep those leaves in some water for maybe a couple of days. Is that what you're saying?
3 days, basically the water, you put the leaves in water for 3 days,
Yeah.
let them start bubbling and fermenting, and then you pour off and use that liquid, which, because of fermentation also draws nutrition out of the plant.
So that liquid then?
That liquid is then used in a soup. Yeah?
Yeah. It's like making a stock.
It contributes to the stock, but the point is that a lot of, by doing that process, you're getting nutrition, that's been leached into the liquid that you're then adding with other plants, or whatever else you're wanting. So the way that I look is that often I'll be taking and harvesting plants that might taste crap, but I'm actually looking for nutritional support, nourishing nutrition. So we're really feeding our body on, you know, it's like kind of minimum effort, maximum effect. So we're using as much of the plant as we can in various ways and combinations, other than just frying it, to get our nutrition.
Good. So once it's been left in the water for 2 days and it starts to bubble, you don't have to do anything else with it after that. Just add it to what you want to do.
Just pour it off and add it to whatever you want. It'll have a tang to it.
You get rid of the leaves.
You can cook the leaves if you want, but I obviously put them in a pottage. Now,
Would they have anything left?
There'll be a bit in there. Pottage way of cooking. Farm workers go out in the old days, they put a pot over the hearth, they come back in the evening off the land, and then they have their meal. And what that does is basically a slow cook. They're slow cooking their food. But the way that pottage is a combination of meat protein, cereals, and green matter. So that's the kind of the way that they did it in the old days. My way of looking at it, moving out of survival into more kind of just taste, is that actually I'll pick and forage lots of plants and separate them out, and then create dishes like you do with tapas, which is Spanish, or mezes in the Middle East, or thali, which is India. And if you look at how they eat little dishes of a few, you know, maybe 2 or 3 plants, ingredients in there, and they'll have another dish and another dish. Obviously, if you're in a survival setting, you just want to get it in your body, don't you? So cool. That's a bit more complicated. And again, hogweed seed. One of the things I'm very into is that, you know, I want to thrive, and I want pleasure, and I like that feeling in my body. So I want spices and herbs that I can use. Now, hogweed seed is one of the most amazing spices I've ever come across. It is an alternative to cardamom, and friends have made kulfi.
What time is this?
What time?
Yeah.
Comes up, must be August, September, that kind of time. August.
So from after when the flowers
after it's flowered and
it's gone.
Starting
to die.
Well, the seeds then. I mean, I found some hog seeds, you know, 3 weeks ago. Not a lot because they've been blown off, but they do hang on for a while. And it tastes like cardamom, and you can use it in biscuits, or you can use it in ice cream. You can for more desserts.
Why not?
I've had hogweed sent down from Kent to look at it, and it's completely different to hogweed around here. And this is the problem with the ID books. Upper Kent way, southeast way, the leaves are a lot more shiny, hogweed leaves. Looking at is where, once you've decided where you are, the
because obviously energy in, energy out. You don't want to be fimbling around all over the place, travelling long distances. You want to find one location and understand is, you know, the estuaries, the coastline is where you want to hang out.